Happy Thursday, boys and girls. It's Miss Mangoni, and I am back to give you your last math lesson of the week. I know that you remember that we are working on addition and subtraction, and on Tuesday we looked at addition. More specifically, we looked at a problem solving strategy that we could use when we were working on word problems. And those can be any type of word problems, but we just happen to focus more on addition on Tuesday, which is great. And I know from looking at my students' work and talking with some of your teachers, you guys did a pretty good job on that. So, congratulations on that. I didn't doubt that you would. So, that is good. But one thing that I did want to point out that I noticed a bit is when you were working on the cube strategy. Specifically, when you were working on the C, there was one little area that kind of got forgotten. So I just want to look at that really briefly again, because you will be using this again today for the homework or assignment that you have today. So the main issue was on the C when you circled the key numbers and units. I know many of you were able to quickly tell me that you needed to circle the numbers, but we forgot the units. So remember, when you're looking at your word problem and you're trying to figure out what it is you need to circle, you circle the numbers and the units. So if it is 4,352 points, you want to circle that number, and then you want to circle the unit, which is points. So make sure that you're not forgetting that when you're doing it, okay? And I think that is the only note that I have for you on the work that you did on Tuesday. So let's talk about what we're going to be doing today. Obviously, since Tuesday was addition, today we're going to be doing subtraction. And when I was thinking about, gosh, it's hard to kind of review addition and subtraction in this way, I thought about what I see most often in my class when it comes to subtraction and some errors that students might make. And I think the biggest thing that I have seen over the years is when you are subtracting and you have to regroup or borrow. Sometimes there are some errors in borrowing or bringing over or regrouping. And I think for some of us, it's just because we don't have a good visual picture of what's happening when we borrow and when we regroup. And those kind of go interchangeably. Most times nowadays we say regroup, we have known it as borrow, but if I say one or the other, know that I mean the same thing. And so today I kind of wanted to give us an idea of what does that look like when we are taking from one number, borrowing, and giving to another number. So I just want to kind of delve into that a little bit today. But before I do, I just want to show you a quick little video to kind of get you in the mindset of regrouping, subtraction, those kinds of things. So let's take a quick look at that.
Hey, it's your boy O'Many who coming live just to help you with subtracting and regrouping. It's a problem that we all have to deal with. Sometimes you're faced with a question where you have to borrow a number. And you have to figure out where that number comes from to find your answer. So if you're ready for it, sit back and relax, and borrow that number. When subtracting large numbers and the digit on top is smaller than the digit at the bottom, we got 2. Borrow that number, borrow that number, borrow that number. Borrow that number from the next place over. Repeat this till it's over, because regrouping isn't hard when you can bring it over. So, borrow that number, borrow that number, borrow that number, borrow that number. I have a friend named Robin. He loves to stack his coins. He loves to give. He's generous. He loves to share his coins to all his friends and family. It gives him massive joy. When he opens up his pouch, he has a large amount. 745 golden coins that he counts. One day, early morning, took his coins and gave out 358 coins out his pouch. How many coins are left? Let's just follow these steps. Take the number that he started with, subtracted from the number that he gave away, subtracting right to left. 5 minus 6, there's no mistake. We have to take the 5 5, make it bigger to subtract the 8. The next place over has a 10 that we can borrow. At first it made me hesitant, like seeing scary shadows. But think about it, it makes more sense if we think in tens. We take the 10 from our floor, give it to the 5. We have a 15 in the ones and a 3 in tens. 15 minus 8, that gives us 7. That's in the ones place. But in the tens place, we have 3 minus 5. We have to borrow from the hundreds place. 1 unit of 100 is equal to 10 tens. 6 is in the hundreds and 13 in the tens. 13 minus 5 is 8 in the end. Now in the hundreds place, we have 6 minus 3. Let me think. So our answer is 3. 387 coins is what he has now. After passing out over 300 coins to his town. Robin is an awesome leader when he walks into town. He's surrounded by crowds. He makes us all very proud. When subtracting large numbers and the digit on top is smaller than the digit at the bottom, we got 2. Bar that number. Bar that number, bar that number. Bar that number from the next place over. Repeat this till it's over. Because regrouping isn't hard when you can bring it over. So, bar that number. Bar that number, bar that number. Bar that number. We don't have to use a chart to subtract. You just have to make sure your place values all match. 3.
Okay, that is the biggest part that I want you guys to think about is that you don't have to have the chart, but you have to remember to bring everything over. So one thing that I was wondering is if you notice that there was a place value chart on there. And I know last week Mrs. Glenn talked about place value quite a bit. And I think she was really trying to get ingrained in your brains what happens when you move over on a place value chart. And if you remember, she indicated that when you make a move, it's times 10, right? And so we're going to take a look at that today and see how that looks and how it plays out when we do some subtraction. But before we get into that, there are just a couple of things that I think we need to remember when it comes to subtraction. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Okay, so I said there are 3 things that I want you to remember when you're subtracting. And I think most of you remember these almost all the time for the most part, and that's great. But sometimes we need a little reminder, so that's what I'm going to give you today. Okay, so first of all, the larger number goes on top. In order to subtract something from something, there has to be something there, right? And there has to be more there than what you're taking away. So whenever you see a problem, like for instance, on your work today, you'll have to choose different amounts from a chart, right? And so you have to make sure that when you're looking at the question and the numbers that go with the question, that you're putting the larger number on top. Okay, I've seen that mistake made before. The second thing is that we subtract from right to left, which I know is weird because we read from left to right, but we always do our subtraction from right to left. So that's something that I want you to keep in mind. And then we always subtract the bottom number from the top number. If you remember in the video, they were talking about 3 from 5 and how that doesn't really work. If the 3 is on top and the 5 is on the bottom, that's why we have to regroup. But a lot of times what I'll see is there will be a 3 on the top and a 5 on the bottom, and students will give an answer of 2, which isn't really what the problem is asking, because the problem is saying 3 minus 5, not 5 minus 3, right? So those are things that we always have to keep in mind. And I know sometimes it's just a quick error because we're not paying attention, but then other times it's because we get a little flustered and we don't remember how to regroup or borrow or what to do in that situation, okay? So what I'm going to do now is work through 3 problems, okay? The first one is only a 3-digit number, and I'm going to show you with each of the numbers what it looks like when we take a number and then we break it up into the place value, right? And what that looks like as far as subtraction goes and how that can help us. So the 3-digit number, fairly simple. I wouldn't think that many of you would make an error on that anyway. But then we're going to move into some larger digit numbers, 5 and 6 specifically, because that's what your assignment is going to be asking you to do. So I want you to have in your mind what it looks like when we conceptualize regrouping or borrowing with the idea of place value, which is really what we're doing. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at what we have here. Okay, so like I said, first thing we're going to do is a 3-digit regrouping. Now I'm going to grab my pen and try to do this for you. I told you on Tuesday that it's a little bit difficult. It's even more difficult today because I don't know if you guys can see I have this brace on. So it kind of limits my movement, but just bear with me and don't laugh at me. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have here. So we have 971 minus 659. Okay, obviously we have our larger number on top here and we are subtracting from here. So we're going to go from right to left. Let me get a little there. That makes me feel better about that problem. Okay, so let's start in the ones place. If we look at that, we immediately know that we have a problem because we only have 1 and we're trying to take 9 away, which we cannot do. So one thing that it's helpful to do first, and this is what I'm going to have you guys do also in your work, is we're going to break up both of these numbers into their place value. Okay, I want you to see what that looks like. I'm not going to draw that. I am going to type that just because it's going to go faster for me. Okay, so we have 900 plus 70 plus 1, right? And you can see that. We know, easy for you, right? 900 is here. The 7 is represented. It's 710, so we see that as 70, and the 1 is just 1, right? Okay, so let's do the same down here. And we are going to put our 600. We're going to do this. Then, because we're subtracting, right? And I'm going to show you why it's important for it to look like that in just a second. And then we're going to put 50, which is what that 5 represents. Let me scoot this back over. Okay. And then we are also subtracting here the 9. Okay. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, so let me go back and grab my pen. Now you see I haven't changed anything as far as the value goes of the numbers. They're all still the same, right? So that's good. But let's look again at what we have here. So we have the 1 minus 9, which we already said we can't do. So what we're going to do is we are going to go to the next place value, which we know is our tens place value. And so we're going to borrow a 10. So when we borrow a 10 from here, right, we're going to cross that out, and that becomes 60, right? Because we've taken that 10 away. Does that make sense? So when we put it over here, we are giving that 10 to the 1, which now we have 11. So one thing I like to do before we even do any of the subtraction is make sure that we are ready to solve. So keep RTS in your mind, ready to solve. So before we do any subtraction, we want to make sure that all of our numbers are ready to solve, okay? So now, if you realize here, I haven't changed the value up here. I've just changed what it looks like, okay? So we still have 900 plus 60 plus 11, which still equals 971, but it gives you this different picture of what that number looks like, right? And I know sometimes we think place value and everything else that we learn or do, it's not really connected, but it is, right? And so this is how we can see it's important. So going back to seeing if we are ready to solve, we have 11 minus 9. That looks good because 11 is bigger than 9. 60 minus 50. That looks good, right? Because 60 is bigger than 50. And then 900 minus 600 looks good, right? So let's figure out what we have here. 11 minus 9 is 2. 6 minus 50 is 4. 4 minus 6 is 9. 900 minus 600 is 2. 6 minus 50 is 4. 4 minus 6 is 9. 900 minus 600 is 2. 6 minus 50 is 4. 4 minus 6 is 9. 900 minus 600 is 2. 6 minus 50 is 4. 4 minus 6 is 9. 900 minus 600 is 2. 6 minus 50 is 4. 4 minus 6 is 9. 900 minus 600 is 2. 6 minus 50 is 4. 4 minus 6 is 9. 900 minus 600 is 2. 6 minus 50 is 4. 4 minus 6 is 9. 900 minus 600 is 2. 6 minus 50 is 4. 4 minus 6 is 9. 900 minus 600 is 2. 6 minus 50 is 4. 4 minus 6 is 9. 900 minus 600 is 2. 6 minus 50 is 4. 4 min Then we're going to add that to our 60 minus 50, which is 10. And then we have 900 minus 600, which is 300. That looks good. Oh, shoot. Let me scoot over just a little bit. Okay. All right. I told you this brace is not my friend. Okay. So that leaves us with 312. Let's go over here and how we would normally subtract in our standard subtraction algorithm is we would see this and we would cross out our 7, right? Because we know we can't subtract 9 from our 1. We would make that a 6. See, these are the same. That 6 in the tens place represents 60, right? We would change that and make it an 11. Again, we're ready to solve. We're going to do 11 minus 9 is 2. 6 minus 5 is 1. And 9 minus 6 is 3. Now you can see that these are exactly the same. Fairly simple, right? How about we try one that's a little bit more difficult and see if it'll work. All right. So we are going to try a 5-digit number that we have multiple regrouping. So what I mean by that is if you remember in the problem we just did, we only had to borrow from the hundreds to give to the tens place. But on this one, we're going to have to do a little bit more than that, okay? So let's read the problem. We have 41,913 minus 11,948. So when I look at this right away, I see a couple of problems. First, we have 3, and we're trying to take away 8, which we can't do, in the ones place. Then in the tens place, I see 1, and we're trying to subtract 4, which also we can't do. So we have to go through and borrow or regroup from other places. So let's see what that looks like. Again, I'm going to type because if I drew all of these numbers out, it would take us forever. So hope that's over far enough. Okay, so what do we have right here? We had our 10,000s place. We have 40,000. And we're adding to that our 1,000. And we're going to add to that our 900. And then we have 10 in the tens place, and we have our 3 in the ones place. Does that look good? I think so. Okay, so let's put here for our 11,948, we're going to break that up, and we have 10, oh, let me scoot over one, 10,000. And to that, we are going to add 1,000. Then we're going to add 900 again. Then in our tens place, we have 4 tens, which is 40. So we're going to make that 40. And then in our ones place, we have 8. I think that looks good too. All right, so let me grab my pen here. And you know what? I think I'm going to make this purple because if you know me, you know that's my favorite color. Okay, so let's look. I'm going to draw my line here. This is subtracting, okay? What do we have here? We have plus signs, right? If you forget and you don't put your minus signs right there, it's okay. Here's what we can do. I'm gonna do this, right? And now since I have my minus sign here and these are in parentheses, that just lets us know that we're going to subtract all of this in here on the bottom from what's on the top, right? So that works. Okay, so let's take a look at our place value and what we can regroup or borrow or bring over from one place to the other, right? Okay, so we'll start at the ones. We have that again, that 3 minus 8, which we cannot do. So we are going to go over here to this 10 because this 10 has a lot to give us. But just remember, right here we have 10 minus 40. So if we take this 10 away, that's going to leave us in worse shape than we already are now. But let's go ahead and set that up. Let's do that. So we're going to take this 10 from here. So that'll make 0, right? Because we took that 10 away. We're going to put it over here. That's going to make our ones 13. Right? Look good? Okay, we're still not ready to solve, right? Because every number on top isn't ready to subtract what's on the bottom, right? So now we're at 0 here. So we have to go over here to our hundreds, which our hundreds have plenty to give, plenty to give. So if we take 100 from here, that will leave us with 800 here. Pretty good. We're going to put it over here, right? And since this is 0 and we took 100 from here, I'm going to cross that out just so you can see visually what it looks like, okay? Now we have 100 right there. Looks good? Oh gosh. Now we have 800 and we're trying to take 900 away. We can't do it again. So what do we have to do? We have to go here and we have to take this 1,000 because there is 1,000 for us to take, right? So we'll take that. That leaves us with no thousands. And we're going to give that 1,000 here. So that now makes this 1,800. Okay, so our ones are ready to solve. We have 13 minus 8, we can do that. 100 minus 40, we can do that. 1,800 minus 900, we can do that. So let's check our thousands place. We have 0 minus 1,000. Yet again, we can't do. So we're going to go over here. I hope you can see visually how this plays out. And this is something that, just to double check yourself, you might want to try if you're using the standard algorithm. Okay. So let's take from here because this 10,000s has a lot to give. We're going to take 10,000 from here. So that will leave us here with 30,000. And then we're going to take it right over here. And so that's going to make in our thousands place 10,000 because that's what we took. Okay. All right. Are we ready to solve? I think so. I think it looks good. Okay. So let's start with our ones. 13 minus 8. We can do that, right? 5. 100 minus 40 gives us 60. Okay, I'm going to try to line these up as best I can. They might be a little off, but you know what I mean. Okay, so let's look at our hundreds. We have 1,800 minus 900, which is 900 as we know. So let's put that. And then we have our thousands place, which is 10,000 minus 1,000, and that's 9,000. Okay, and then our 10,000s, we have 30,000 minus 10,000, which is 20,000. I'm gonna try to make enough room here, boys and girls. Kind of. Okay, I did it. All right. One thing I'm going to point out before I move on is up here, this will still add up to 41,913. So if we have our 30,000 plus our 10,000, our 1,800, our 100, and our 13, it still ends up being 41,913. So again, we haven't changed the value. We've just changed the place around so that we can do our subtraction. Okay, so now we have 29,965, which I bet if we tried it over here, it would be the same thing, right? So let's do that really fast. So we're going to take from here, gonna make a 13, Then, oh gosh, we have to come over here again. So again, this will become our 10. This will become our 8. We're going to take one from here, which makes this guy 18. And then here, this will be a 3 because we're going to knock that out. And this one, I'm going to put it up here just so you can know, because I'm running out of space, is our 10. So if we do our subtraction, it's going to end up the same. 6, our 9, our 9 here, and our 3 minus 1 is our 2. So look, we have the same number, 29,965. We have the same here, 29,965. I think that one was a little more intricate, but I think it was doable. What do you guys think? Yeah? Okay, last one I want to go through is a 6-digit number, just so you have 3 visual examples when you come back to this to do your work. Because like I said, in your work that you have for your assignment tonight, there are some 5-digit subtraction problems and some 6-digit subtraction problems. And on both of those, I'd like for you to show your work. Okay, so let's check this one out. Okay, so we have, I'm gonna scoot this down just a little. We have 714,294 minus 616,069. That seems like a mouthful for me right now. Okay, so I will break it up. First, we have 700,000. We're going to then do our, excuse me, 10,000. Then we're going to do our 4,000. Then our 200, our 90, and our 4, right? I can probably scoot that over a little bit, give us a little space. Okay, so down here, we have our 600,000. Going to add that to our 10,000 again. Add that to what? 6,000. Now right here, we've got a 0 right here. So that's going to just look like that, okay? And I'm going to scoot over and add our 60 and our 9. How's that look? Looks pretty good to me. All right, so I think I'll stick with purples. Let me get my lines here. Now remember, I left my plus signs here. You can do your subtraction, but if you leave your plus signs here, you're going to need to make your brackets so that we know we're going to subtract everything underneath that is in the brackets. All right, so looking at the ones place, that's where we have our very first problem. We're going to need to take a 10 from there, of course. So let's do that. That now makes that 90 become 80. And our 4 is now a 14. Okay, so it looks like we're ready to solve in the ones place and the tens place. So when we look here, we have 200 minus 0. I think we can leave that the same. That looks good. In our thousands place, we have 4,000 minus 6,000. That's not going to work. What are we going to do? Come over here and take a 10,000 away. So when we take 10,000 away from the 10,000, that leaves us with a 0 here. But over here, we now have 14,000. Oh, well, that is an ugly 4. Let me see if I can fix that. Okay, I'm I'm going to cross that out. Okay, so that looks good. 14,000 minus 6,000. Now we have a smidge of a problem here, but that's okay because our 100,000s place has plenty for us to take from. So if we take 100,000 from that 700,000, that gives us 600,000. Looks good. And we're going to put that over here. So that's going to become 100,000. So let's do that. Okay. All right, boys and girls, I think we are ready to solve our last one. All right, let's see what we have here. We have 14 minus 9, which is 5. We have, oh shucks, this should be a 0. Okay, let me fix that. I bet you guys caught that already. You guys are good. So 80 minus 60, that's going to give us our 20. That looks good. Our 200 minus 0 gives us 200. In our hundreds place. Then in our thousands place, we have 14,000 minus the 6,000. Does that look right? Yeah, that gives us 8. Oh gosh, it's an ugly 8, but you guys know what I mean. 8,000. And we're going to come over here. And we have our 100,000 minus our 10,000, which gives us 90,000. Okay. And then here we don't have anything because our 600,000 minus 600,000 is 0, but we're not going to write our 0. We're just going to leave it like that. So that's showing us that our answer for 714,294 minus 616,069 is 98,225. Okay, so I'm going to scoot over and write that here. And then I'll put everything here, the annotations, so that you will know. But I think you guys have it by now, and I think you'll kind of understand what it is you need to do. So I'll make that our 14. And I hope that for some of you that need to see things a little bit more visually, this helps. So I think it will. Okay, so then let's go ahead and cross that out. That becomes a 6. Excuse me. Let's see. Oh, what are we doing here? We're going to take that, and then we're going to make that 14. Okay, and there we are. Now, let's look at one thing really fast that I want you to remember when you are working on your work tonight. You need to show your work on a separate sheet of paper. Now, you can show it to your teacher in your morning meeting if that's something that you do. That's what I put here. Some people do that. I know others of you are taking pictures of your work and emailing it or getting it to your teacher in another way. But I want you to make sure that that's something that you do today because, again, you are being asked to separate your numbers into the place value and show how you're borrowing and regrouping on your work tonight. Okay, so make sure that you do that. Thank you, boys and girls. It's been so great being your math teacher this week, and I will see you soon. Have a good day.